Hi, welcome to Area 51 Raceway. I'm here with the part two on the Carrera tune for wood and for plastic. So this car here is done and runs very well on the wood track. And I've left the magnets in, so just to have a magnetized car for the plastic Carrera track. And I'm doing this to show people if you don't want to, if you just want to take this to a wood track one day and race it, and you just don't want to take the magnets out and leave it for your home plastic track, you could do that, or just take the magnets out either way and run it on the plastic track as well. So this one is pretty much done, and I'm going to show you what I did to this one. As I've ran this on the track, and the best time I could get from it would be 2.6. 2.5 was one I got when I first ran it, but that's without the weights I added here in the back to calm the tail from fishtailing so much. And I'm going to show you what I've done with this car. And in part two, we're going to work on the chassis. So here are all the parts that I've used for this one over here. We've used the Predator ball bearing motor, the PGD 201 25LM for the rear, and the PGD 19125LM for the front. And then I used the CG Slot Cars guide adapter, which is the rear mounted guide adapter. I will not use that guide in there. And then I have the Slotting Plus guide is the one I'm preferably going to use, and a 9-tooth pinion gear to slot it, and braid. I will be using the tin braid, copper tin braid from Slot Car Corner, which I don't have a box out here. It's in a roll. And then the weight I used was this thin weight, which is the Mid America Ultra Thin 24 thousandths weight, and that's how I stuck the weights back here in this, cut it out to shape and did it that way. So we have basically the sister car to this. This was in a set that I got a long time ago. And these cars have sat around for a long time. As you can see, they're obviously dusty. So here's the blue car. And what I'm going to go over is what I've done to this car to basically, get body float. So what I'm going to do here is remove all this stuff out of the way, obviously. Now I'm going to keep the axles because we're going to reuse those. So we're going to pop those out, put those off to the side, take the fronts off. Hopefully nothing else will break here. And what I will do next is remove all this stuff, which is the motor, the guide, and here's the Carrera spring guide. This design where it's got a spring in it, and this is exactly what I did to the other car. I'm going to remove all this out of the way because we are not going to use this. I guess you could throw this in the box and save it for, maybe a spare on, or somebody that needs, just wants to use the stock stuff, and just put it off to the side. Take that out of there. This is the little polarity reverse chip. I'll remove that. Save that screw because I'll be using that. And remove the motor, just like that. I won't be using the pinion, and there we go. That is the bare chassis right there. Now, how I'm going to do this is, and I don't have a fresh blade, which I should get a fresh blade, so it cuts the plastic easier. Oh, darn it, move the camera. I always tend to do that. So I moved the camera there on accident, excuse me. I'll get a fresh blade so it's nice and sharp, and you have to be really careful when you're doing this because you could slice your hand very quickly, and it can be pretty painful and pretty dangerous. So make sure you are doing this cautiously and handling this very carefully. And what I'm going to do is get a new blade. And what I want to start out with is where I usually shave it, is right here. So these posts mount in here and then they stay stationary in there. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut these little pieces out so that this way the posts will float all the way around instead of stay stationed in one spot. And what I'll do is I'll get a blade and just start just like that. You got to be real careful so that slip like that go away from you. We don't want you losing fingers over a slot car. Now I'll do this, kind of saw into it, and there you go. And just basically just taking stuff off like that. That's what the blade is good for. And just keep working at it and remove all this okay, when you get it flush is what you're wanting. And as soon as you get it flush, looks pretty good, like that. And again, you just have to work the way around. See, we have a little bit there, and I don't have a light shining really brightly on there. Let me get this there. Sorry about that. And you're just cutting all this away, just like that. There you go. And there you go. Got a flush spot right there, and that's what we're getting at, is just that. And that out. And just take a look at that and get it flush as possible, removing all that and flashing off there. And there's a piece right there. And just clean it up a little, you know, as you go along. You'll see now, you see how this is removed from here, and then all that is gone, and that's your body post is going to be floating on here. So you'll have to do that here, 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 and here. And then what I also do is trim these down right here on this spot right here and along here. And I trim these a little and these a little, because I want the body to move around this way as well, just like on this car, which I have. And this one's a little tight because you're going to find out that this one, see, I got movement right there. That's what I'm looking for. And then back and forth, and then that's what we're trying to get at. So you have to trim, and then as you trim this and you put the car on, and you'll have to Dremel all this, you'll start kind of getting that movement you want, and it's just, you know, cut and check and cut and check, grind and check, grind and check. That's what you have to do to achieve your float. And you can use a Dremel as well if you want. I'm just using a blade just to show you, because a blade could be a little bit more scarier, because you can see how that slips and that goes, and that can go right into your hand. So you have to be extra careful what you're doing here and paying attention. Don't let nobody distract you with a sharp blade. And chopping all that down, and getting everything removed. Looks like I got everything removed there. And again, you could get a file and file it down a little, and just grab your file and just file a little down on both sides, and that's what you're doing. There you go. You go ahead and work at that a little if you want, if you feel it needs to be filed down more. Again, you just checking everything like that. And here, all you're doing is removing that, those areas, those high spots where the posts are not allowed to move. And then this way your car, see, you have that movement. That's what you're getting right there. Now, if you feel you don't have to shave anymore, don't. Just go ahead and just, it's a test and fit trial deal. And again, you see right here, these, right in here, these pieces are preventing the body from going side to side, because they're going along this part here of the body. So what we'll do is we'll trim those down, and I will get a blade, and I'll come over here and trim a little off, or that much off. And again, I'm just doing it by eye. I'm not getting a, you know, a caliper or anything like that. I don't think we need to go that far, but if you feel you need to, you know, measure, that's fine. I'm nothing against measuring. Whatever works for you is what I say with everything. And there you go. Chop off more. And I'm just allowing this to have room to float. Let me put that there before I stab myself. And grind off there, you know, file off there. And I've narrowed these. And again, that'll keep this from not. See, now I got my movement there. Well, after I shave that, obviously, but those right there will not be getting in the way. See, there's a gap here and a gap here. So when you shave this down, the body will move just like this is doing, you know, side to side. That's what I'm trying to get. So now after I've done these here, what I'll do is I'll get a Dremel, and I'll get one out right now. And I have a sanding drum, or you could use one of these bits as well. These are a little bit more probably better to use, but as you can see, you get these from eBay. There's different sizes. We could get something like this. We'll get like one like this if we want. Grind down, or you could use this. Either way. So what you'll do is you'll just grind that down, and you can use this if you want. Back and forth. This one will be a little bit more aggressive, but it will do the job also, but it will take off more and I think a little quicker. You could use that drum to kind of finish it off if you want to smooth it out, because you will have the plastic flashing. We'll go like right there. You see how I'm grinding down there? That one actually works pretty good too. I get that. So you can see there we got some there. Not enough, obviously. I need to grind quite a bit more. But you can see you have to grind away. And this is the thing with a Dremel. You can't be afraid to use it. If you have to, grind, you have to grind away. Try to keep from getting caught on that one area where it keeps slipping down. Yeah. There you go. Keep working away at what you're doing. And see, still need a lot more. So you keep working at this until you get it at that point. And what I'll do is I'll grind that down, and then also I will go back here and cut these down to give movement as well. And I'll chop those off. Come right off the side here. Again, be careful because this, or you could put it there. If this becomes to where you can't cut it, you could also use sprue cutters. And so what I could do here with my sprue cutter is come down here where I already cut. I don't want to just chop that off like that. And you could do it like that. And you could also even come right here and do it like this as well. If that's a little bit crooked, and straighten it out. If you don't want to use, again, this, if you have these are probably a little bit easier than the blade. And you chop it off. And there you go. And that's that. I also get rid of these in the back here. These also get in the way of the body. And I'll chop these back here also. If I can get to it, just depends. I can use a blade as well if it's some area where I cannot reach. And chop that off, but that's a little tough too. So what I'll do is I'll come down here, take a little bit like that, and just kind of get rid of it. I could always trim that off with the Dremel as well. And there you go. Get rid of all that right there. Come across with your Dremel here and clean it up. Yep. You know what? We chopped the top up, so there you go. So that's gone. Just get rid of it. And now that we've cut down what we got here, we're going to chop these down as well. So you can use your blade and just cut away. Keep your hand away from it. And this is a sharp blade. Keep my hand away. And again, you guys could do it any other different way if you want, as long as you cut these off and get them pretty flush. That's the whole point of this. Just that these could move around and the post won't be, sorry for bumping the camera there, will not get in the way. This is a tough one. Hold it this way. I don't want to be anywhere near that blade. And there you go. Just like that. Keep going. I don't have much light here, so I can't put it right there. And there you go. And then again, there's a lot of plastic around here. Get your and you saw I'm shaking the camera there, sorry. Got this up against the table so I may shake it. And just file these down. And you can just double check that as you look from the side, make sure they look pretty even. And there's somewhat of your float. Right now we don't have any because we have to chop this down more. So this will take more time, so let me grind this down and we'll get back to where we're at after this is ground down. Okay, here we are. So you can see the big mess with, you know, tools all over and blades and whatnot. So what we're doing here is we've trimmed the chassis like I showed you in some areas, and I'm going to pass this, flip this over, and you're going to see how much I've taken off on the side. Maybe a little bit errant on it, but you know what? I just want to make sure there was clearance. As you can see, the body will be able to move like it should. And I'll show you the areas that I grinded. So obviously the side here of the chassis, these spots right here, I've cut them out, as well as back here, so that this way this doesn't hit up against the body. And there's a little bit of, you know, flashing, so you could clean it up as you you know, see fit. And then back here is a little tough part, and I went a little bit, I go crazy on these to cut them out and then grind these down and make sure there's this top is ground as well, because the tail will kind of be pretty close, but once you get the float, it'll move around like it should. And these cars may like it a little tight, because what I've noticed when I tuned the red one, that it liked a little bit of a tight rear end. So I got like maybe about this much movement, and it kept it from fishtailing as much. But you'll have to experiment with your track. Like I said, you tune your car for your track. And what I did too also with these is I just, with this file, I just kind of make sure I went through the holes and they were clear. Now remember, you don't want to overdo it and completely open these holes up, because what happens if, and I've done this before, you open the holes up, then these shoulders on these screws will go through. So you got to remember that. You just want enough to where the screw is just going to move around in there like that, if you could see that. And that's what we want. So I just basically cleared it down. Then I shaved this down on the front, and these tabs as well here. These tabs, the side, the tabs here in the back, and then I got this area and ground down to make a gap. I mean, I did that with the red one. If you feel that you don't need to do it and you got enough movement, then don't. I just want to be able to make sure the tail had some movement, and then shaved up here. So it's basically a chassis that's been trimmed the way I want it to be trimmed. And again, if there's flashing, you could sand that off with regular sandpaper and clean it up. So just go over like this and clean your flashing. Again, nobody's going to look underneath the car. I mean, if you're worried about cutting up the car or grinding into it, then I suggest not doing any of this and just leave it the way it is. But if you want to tune it for wood and then leave the magnets in and play with it downstairs, and if you have a track downstairs, like I say downstairs, like Area 51, the plastic track, you could do that. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds. So when I put the body on here, you can see I got my movement like I want. So I think we're in pretty good shape. This shouldn't interfere right there too much. That should be okay. But you could always grind a little here if you have to, if you need to. But when I put the body screws, there's enough movement there. And that looks pretty good. I think we'll go with that. And then, of course, when you clean up your mess, next step is, you know, adding your motor and your rear mount guide mount. So that's it for the chassis there, as far as, you know, getting it all down. And again, all these are sanded down a little. Well, not a little, but they're sanded down so they're flush. You get rid of those pieces there. And again, if you feel like you need to get a little bit of sandpaper, just, you know, scrape them down like that. If you don't, you know, want to feel, get a little flashing off of it, just like that, and that's it. Now you're ready to put the rest of the components, like the mount for the guide, your motor after you press your pinion in, your axle, and so forth. So that's it for the chassis right there. That's basically where we're at with this particular car. And again, I'm using which I didn't mention, I am using the 2608 Slot Car Corner body float screws. That's what these are right here. As you can see, what they have that little shoulder there. So when they screw down, there's float there. Or if you need to loosen them up, they will hold on to the body, because these are like a type of thread that are not, that won't come loose if you need to come out a little bit to adjust. And that's what I had to do to the red Ferrari, was as I tuned it, I got it, a little tighter in the back. And as you can see how much movement there is there. And I just tuned it, and with a little movement of the screw, it really does, affect it. As you can see, I don't have as much. Don't look like anything went wild with this one, trimmed it that much. I went a little bit more on this. But again, it's, it's a matter of how you want to cut your car. I mean, if you feel it needs more, do more. Like, see right here, I'll probably chop this down a little more, maybe on this end. And I mean, that's easily achievable by just getting a little, just, grinding a little down. You'll need to grind a little down, and body and then test fit. So I mean, that's all it is. This one's did a little bit more on this one. So, but as long as you're basically getting what you need out of the car, which is, the float, you don't want it to interfere, with the body, the chassis and the body. It's allowed to move around. That's basically what you're after. And again, this is just my way. If you have a different way of cutting this down or trimming it, by all means, share the information, or do it the way you feel it's best for yourself. Maybe a little bit there. I need to be cut down a little bit crooked there. So let me correct a couple of things there. But again, it's just it's just cutting and fitting, and then cutting and fitting until you get the sweet spot you want, and you get yourself a, where you could float the chassis on the body. So, all right, so we'll talk about tires next here. We'll talk about what these numbers mean, and we'll go ahead and explain it. So let's go on to the next segment about tires. All right, let's talk tires. So I got a little bit of a mess here, and this is a chart that's available on Slot Car Corner. Let me get out of all this so I could show you where it's at, and take you to the page where this is all at here. So the first thing you're going to do when you go to Slot Car Corner, say you go to the home site, you're going to go to the resources right here. This is resources, and you're going to go to tire info, and then you're going to select Paul Gauge, because they also have a quick slicks guide as well. So we want Paul Gauge because you're talking about urethane tires. And then we're going to go all the way down. There's a tire selector video to showing you how to select tires by, make of car or wheel size or whatnot. And then there's the Paul Gauge part numbers, understanding what they mean and all that stuff. So we'll click that, and you're going to get this right here, understanding Paul Gauge tires. So we'll start out with the this one here in particular. So now all these packagings or numbers, part numbers, will have these first letters on here. So PGT, excuse me, I always say D, means firm tire, so Shore 40. That's the hardness of the tire. And then the softer tire will be XPG, soft Shore 20 tire. So this is obviously a softer tire than this. I usually use a 40, but you could experiment with what you want. So that's what this means right here. So we have a firm tire, and then this next number is a 20 millimeter tire. When it's mounted, it's 20 millimeters. That's the diameter of the tire, the height of the tire. So height from here to here is 20 millimeters. And then in the center, or the next number, excuse me, is your width. So right here is the tire width. So it'll be 12 millimeters in width. That's basically the width of the tire. And then your next number will be the width of the center rib in millimeters. So that's exactly how you do it, just like it says right here. I'm just going to use this as an example. I'm not going to get a caliper out. So when you have wheels that are 13 to 15 millimeters, they're just going to have either 13 but no LM after it, because from 16 to 18-inch millimeter wheels and up, 1920, these are larger wheels or larger tires than the standard tire. they're going to have LM right after it. So that's why this is LM, because it's larger than 15 millimeter and up. So we have firm tire, 20 millimeter in overall height, or height of the tire, 12 millimeter in width, and a 5 millimeter center rib. And it's the LM Le Mans style tire is what this LM means. So that basically reads this whole package, what it means. Now we're going to go and use the Showdown tire as an example of another designation here, which is tire sidewall. So we have a firm tire. This is 22 millimeters mounted, 16 millimeters wide, with a 6 millimeter center rib. So that's basically what all this means. And then FF means the tire sidewall designation for fat old F1. That's what the FF is. And this is basically the Showdown tires that we use. Standard one won't have anything. If you have a street look tire, which I haven't really looked at these at all because I don't use them, it'll say SE right after it right there. Or if it's a vintage, it'll say V for narrow. Now the next type of letters that are usually designated after this, and I will show you on this particular one. So these are the Porsche tires that I got when I sent them the size that I need of the wheel with the wheel and tire chart, and he got me the correct wheel, or excuse me, the correct tire. Because front tires, you have to really dig in a little bit more because they're not going to have front tires for the cars. Usually it's just rear. But I prefer this over rubber because these will last longer and they'll chew easier, and I like them just better that way. So we'll go over this here right here with this XD number. So we have the firmness again, the height of the tire, the width of the tire, the width of the rib. It's a Le Mans style, and then XD means it's an extra deep center rib. There's the standard center rib, and then this is a taller center rib, which is extra deep, which is 1.5, and that's what this is. And then if you have a 2 millimeter, it would be XXD, and that's what it would say there if it was a 2 millimeter center rib height. So you have firmness, diameter size, width, center rib width, the style, Le Mans style tire, which is larger than 15 and up, and then the center rib height, which is XD, extra deep, 1.5 millimeter. That's extra deep, 2 millimeter. And then the standard size won't have anything because it'll say 1 millimeter on it. Now we'll look at the typical like Steely wheels for CB designs, and this is what this is right here, and we'll go over this number right here. So this is a firm tire. So this is 28 millimeters in height because it's a standard tire, the way the sidewall is. And then we have 12 millimeters wide with the 5 millimeter center rib. And that's how you read this. Now, I believe on the no rib ones, there would be a 0. I don't have any no ribs on me. I can't really show you at the moment, but I believe it's 0. It means it has no rib on it because obviously it's flat. It's just a donut tire that slips on. And they'll say that on there when you're looking for tires and stuff and rims. So, that's basically it. I hope this kind of helped you kind of understand this more as I dump everything over on the bench here. It's quite a mess. It was a mess earlier. So we went over doing our little chassis modifications on this Ferrari. And on the next video, we'll do tires, mounting them and truing them, and then doing the running gear, and hopefully getting the car to go on the track and run it so you can see what performance you get out of it with all these modifications. So, as always, thank you for watching, and you have fun racing.